In this podcast, I shall explain constructors. A constructor is a special type of method that is called a declaration of an object. It is often used for accepting parameters to set values to attributes. I am going to explain constructors by example, so as usual I am going to load NetBeans and I am going to first open the main class. Now this part of the code is called the constructor, and as you can see here in our constructor we have only an open and a close brackets without any parameters. Now with constructors you can include parameters in the object creation so that we would be able to set values such as, for example, the name, the surname and the age via the constructor without having to invoke the setters individually. And in order to do this, I am going to open class person and then I'm going to write my constructor here. A constructor always starts with the access modifier public followed by the name of the class, followed by an open and a close brackets, and in these brackets we should write the arguments which we would like to pass to our constructor. In our case I am going to pass the name, the surname and the age, and in the contents of the constructor I am going to set this name to the attribute name, this surname to the attribute surname and the age to the attribute age. And our constructor is now ready. Now if I go in my main class and I am going to comment that code, here I can pass the name, surname and age as parameters. So Matthew Schwirab 25, and if I invoke the method display details, here we have the correct output. So by creating the method using this constructor, we are setting the name, the surname and the age here to these attributes, and we do not have to make use of the setters to set these values. But the problem with this constructor is that if we want to create another object P2 of type person, we can only create a person by passing the name, the surname and the age. In other words, since now we have created a constructor, we cannot create a person like this as we used to do before constructors. The reason being that since we have defined a constructor in class person, by default there is no empty constructor like this. So in order to solve this problem, we can go in class person and create what we call an empty constructor. This is basically public person, open and close brackets with no arguments, and open and close curly brackets with no contents at all. And now, if we go in our main class, we can also create an object without passing anything to the constructor. Please note that here I am introducing a new concept to object-oriented programming, which is called overloading. And basically, I am overloading the constructor. In other words, we have two constructors with the same name, but with a different parameters list. This overloading concept is possible also for methods. However, I will explain this for methods in the coming podcasts. If I go back in my main and I try to create a new person, if I make use of the autocomplete tool provided by NetBeans, notice that now here we have to choose from two different constructors, either an empty constructor or a constructor which accepts the name, the surname and the age. We can have a number of different constructors. For instance, suppose we would like to create an object person by passing only the name and the surname. We can do that simply by writing a new constructor here, however this time with two attributes, the name and the surname. And now, if we go in the main method, here we have to choose from three different constructors, either a constructor which does not have any attributes, this is called an empty constructor, or a constructor which accepts the name and the surname, or else a constructor which accepts the name, the surname and the age. And this brings us to the end of our podcast. For more information, kindly visit our website on www.matthewschwierep.com.